Hi, my name is Gry Espedal, and I am an associate professor at VID Specialized University, together with
me. Hi, I am Beate Gjelstad Løvaas, and I'm Associate Professor at VID Specialized University in Norway as well. VID is a faith-based university, and we are both teaching at the Master Program of Value-Based Leadership.
We have submitted a paper for the MIU conference entitled Creating Organizational Space of Hope Through Value-Conscious Practices. We will here talk about why this study, what motivated this study, what is the study about, and how was the study conducted. We discovered that during the corona pandemic, our management students were actually part of transformative activities. In a time of uncertainty, they were actually hoping. They were not paralyzed by uncontrolled situation, but were acting on compassion and establishing meaningful situation of hope. How did they do that?
And this is the background for our two research questions, where we ask, how do managers in times of crisis create spaces of hope? And what are the underlying mechanisms facilitating these processes of hopes in organizations? So as such, we investigate what the managers do and how these actions have emerged. And how did we do that? This empirical research is based on two data sources. The first is 24 essays written by 12 managers during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the other is focus group interview with managers. And for analyzing data, we used thematic analysis that were inspired by a narrative approach. And both authors independently developed initial coding and thereafter discussing and developing new codes and categories. We treated coding as a starting point rather than an endpoint in which new questions derived from the coding process. An example of a question derived from the coding process was, what are the drivers to these changes in actions among the managers? And this question was later added as a second research question of this study, actually.
When it comes to findings, we analyzed the manager's essays and the focus group interview. It was possible to establish an understanding of how the leaders were organizing for hope in a crisis situation. By connecting research on crisis management and positive organizational leadership, we discovered a dynamic and relational process of hoping. Instead of dealing with negative emotions, the leaders enhanced a process of noticing the despair, searching for meaning and appropriate actions to establish horizons of possibilities. We discovered the process in 4 phases, as the model shows. First, the leaders were noticing the despair. The managers were experiencing the corona pandemic as a traumatic situation. They did not feel they were prepared for this and had to change many work practices and routines. Despite the lack of control, they noticed the emotions involved, emotions of despair. Second, we saw the managers in a situation of deconstruction were searching for platforms to reconstruct meaning. The leaders looked upon themselves as positive force and started to search for needs of the organizational members. Third, the managers used different arenas to enhance the action of hoping in recognizing the situation and enact compassion. They used small encounters with organizational members to listen and recognize what was happening. Finally, through this conscious work, they established a horizon of hope and possibilities of the organizational members as a form of sensibility of the situation. They brought hope into the situation by tracking what was going well despite the challenging situation and finding what could be life-giving, flourishing forces in the situation.
And then we asked what facilitated these processes of hope, or in other words, what were the underlying mechanisms facilitating these processes? And we discovered that processes of hope were facilitated among others through group reflections in safe spaces. And we discovered how these reflections in safe spaces with slow thinking and also identifications with others make us move inwards and getting the courage to move forward by taking new steps of actions. So we discovered how group reflection in safe spaces enabled value conscious practices in organizations.
And then we will end by saying thank you for listening. That's super.